free fight, getting more value out of just the space you're taking.
Ooh. Oh, that was too early!
Oh no!
Yeah, you mistimed it so much.
All right, Zenyatta, and what SR is this this game at?
This is I don't remember. This was like yesterday. I'm Diamond. I'm like on the cusp of falling into plat right now.
All right.
I would love to avoid that if possible.
When's the last time you were in plat?
This is the first time I'm really grinding competitive this year, especially. The last time I was in plat was probably like the last time maybe like 2 seasons ago.
Okay.
And like, I don't know what season it is right now, but like season 24.
So it's not like you haven't seen plat for 20 seasons, and it's going to be a great dishonor on your family if you fall back into it.
Oh no. They will be very used to it.
Yeah, it's not going to be like J3 falling into Masters or something like that. Now, with you being in Diamond, is there a specific thing that you're working on or a specific weakness? Did you come into this review with a question that you want to have addressed, or just interested for what Lou and I find in your gameplay?
So I'm mainly trying to play Mercy and Zen right now. Those are my 2 best support heroes, along with like Ana. And especially with Zen, my transcendence usage has gotten a lot worse since I first started playing him, because it feels like there's so many situations to use his ult, and I either do it too early or too late.
Interesting.
I can never use it at the right moment.
Do you have any intro questions, Lou?
I guess looking at this map in particular, what made you choose Zenyatta over Mercy for defense here? Anything in particular, or just felt like playing Zenyatta?
Yeah, I usually default to playing Zenyatta.
Okay.
I will go Mercy if like we have double hit scan, if we have a Hanzo, or if I'm getting dove, I will then go Mercy because I can survive easier on Mercy.
Okay, yeah. What I was gonna say leading up to that is that since there's no quote unquote ideal pocket target on your team comp right now, there's no Pharah or Echo, there's no long range damage dealer like Hanzo or even Ashe. Zenyatta is probably the more value pick here. Like, sure, you could boost a Genji or a Fire Strike or a McCree, but it's not going to be as valuable as Discord Orb a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Okay.
All right. Let's see what you got for us.
Transcendence plays.
Yeah. In order to, are you a player who kind of goes for more of like the picks value? Are you trying to charge your transcendence as quickly as possible?
I'm passive. Like, I try to charge my ultimate as quickly as possible. But I will occasionally do the occasional flank to try to get a pick.
I like it. Ooh, nice. Do you use your healing key at all?
You mean like calling for healing?
Yeah.
I do. I don't remember if I did this time.
Haven't used it. You haven't used it so far.
No, I haven't used it. I do use it. For some reason, I didn't do it that time.
It's one of those things where like sometimes people use it passive aggressively, which is really annoying in rank. But like I'll spam it pretty much as soon as I take a hit if I know that like I'm not in LOS of my healers, or if I know that I'm about to take damage. So you weren't playing support during the tournament, but I mean, especially on Zenyatta, where like you want to have as high an uptime as possible, or you're in any sort of situation where you are below a breakpoint where you can get one shot. It's like you getting healing and moving out of that, because like you dying is basically a lost team fight, or it's going to be extraordinarily difficult. Whereas if you stay alive, you have an advantage the longer the teams go on. Whereas like you do have to be greedy with healing and attention, because that greed is justified. Those resources need to go into you, and they need to go into you as soon as possible, so that your uptime can stay as high as possible.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know if you were asking for it on comms or something, but just from the way that you were looking around, I assumed that you weren't asking for it verbally either. So, if you're not asking for it on comms, you have to be using your X key because it will also it's a visual cue. Your healers will react to it almost Pavlovian style to go and help you, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So. I think that this is probably something that happens with people who are, maybe a little bit too passive, not just in gameplay. Like, you can have a passive gameplay, but be assertive with your team about, like, what you need in order to be successful.
Yeah.
I also
And to what Jayne's saying,
Eva too.
Zenyatta is by far the greediest support hero in the game.
Yeah.
So do not be afraid to ask for resources when you need them, whether that's healing, whether that's shields, whatever.
Yeah, at Pro, there's entire team fights that, like, it's just like 6 people pile onto a Zenyatta, all of the cooldowns. It's just like, yeah, you need to be greedy. If you are the person on the team that matters the most, and that's not arrogance, that's just recognizing that you're the most important character, you need to have support and ask for it when necessary. Oof.
I actually like that movement a lot. Not backing up there denied Doomfist's ability to separate you from your team because your team was moving aggressively, so good recognizing the tempo your team was taking. Oh, this is scary. This is a little bit of a symptom of your team overextending. But also, you were sort of trying to wrap towards getting aggressive back on point when your team was not in a position to do that, right?
Right.
To be honest, there's not a whole lot you could have done in this situation. But it might have even been safer to play more with your team and given up the point, and then try to just fully retake as 6. Instead of trying to take this angle and sort of try and get some high value damage in, maybe build up a transcendence. It kind of opened you up to that pick from Hanzo.
Yeah.
But yeah, really tough spot to be in general.
Repetition is the path to mastery.
Objective lost. Stop the payload.
Similar to asking for healing or other resources by being greedy, we should be thinking heavily about positioning as Zenyatta.
Yeah, I really wanted to take the high ground.
Ooh,
but...
nice little kill.
Thank you. Yeah, I really wanted to take the high ground, but then I saw that the Ryan and Nana were getting killed.
Yeah, anytime during this downtime right now, I would like to see you moving towards. Even though your Ryan's not there, even having just your McCree up there would be enough protection for you, I would say. Given that they're not on like a full dive comp, it would be enough to thwart off a Doomfist, for example.
Yeah, and
so
your alternative position is going to be in this doorway. Right? So if you are going to take positions like this, like where you won't using this sightline, don't half-ass it. Because you right here, you're kind of like, I want to be open to be effective, but then your retreat right now is through open territory. You're gonna fucking die.
Make them work for it.
Make them work for it, especially against Doomfist. Doomfist have real big trouble trying to slam into through doorways and things like that, and even outside of Doomfists, right? This position is going to be good because it also gives you a retreat right onto Omega. So don't half-ass your positioning, right? If you take the time to get on the high ground, especially with your McCree there, going to be super valuable. And if not, play where it's going to be super, super hard to kill you.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned you felt you were a somewhat passive player. That was like fairly aggressive positioning you were taking.
And much more aggressive than the last Zenyatta we watched.
Nice. Your orbs just carried that duel. Good recognizing the flank pressure there.
I hate
again,
this positioning, though. Oh, I hate this position.
There's nowhere to go. One, your Reinhardt shield isn't doing anything for you, and two, you've got nowhere to go to.
Yeah.
What's your thought process when you have your transcendence? How are you planning out how to use it?
I am basically looking at DPS ultimates, and I recognize that my transcendence will do nothing against either of them. So,
So what can you do in that instance to get value out of Transcendence?
Use it more
there's nothing-
aggressively.
So,
And,
yeah, if there's-
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lou.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if there's nothing directly that you're needed to counter, you can counter things like just aggression, like losing duels. If your Genji's about to lose a duel to a Doomfist, trancing him just to win that duel and then going aggressive off that. If your Reinhardt's getting out pressured by enemy Rein, trancing to keep him up and going aggressive off that. Or if your team is coordinated enough, even just going off the rip with taking first tempo, going aggressive with trance can be really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing I'd say is you can use Transcendence to warrant over aggressive positioning. And this is something we mentioned on the last Zenyatta VOD we did, where you can position similar to where you were before, ideally in that doorway. And then when they commit to flushing you out, either like by Rein rotating on you, Doomfist engaging on you, then you can Transcendence as the team collapses onto you to punish those members. Kind of like bait yourself as a target when realistically you've got this invincibility button, get out of jail free card. And then you can punish team members that tried to get you because of that.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the things where it's like if you, in order to get to the next levels of Zenyatta play, like if you're in Diamond, if you want to get out of Diamond and into Masters, you're going to have to use your Transcendence in more ways than just countering DPS ults. Because if you're countering it, it's like, yes, you're shutting them down, but it's kind of like playing goaltender, where it's like a goaltender, even if you block 40 shots out of 45, you still let 5 in and you're a bum, sort of thing. So you can't score playing defense. And in a lot of the ways where I think that it's the same sort of thing that you see with Zarya's playing for like big 6-man grabs or something, where at the higher reloads, just using grab to get 1, maybe 2 is a huge win here. Like your ultimate. Like the purpose of the ultimate isn't to counter ultimates. The purpose of the ultimate is to win team fights and win the game overall. And the best way that you're going to be doing that. So very, very simple things. Like if you land the Discord on the enemy Reinhardt, and you can just enable your Reinhardt to hard swing at that guy for the entire time, that alone, just using it in a way where maybe you don't get a solo kill or something, but overall the team as a whole goes up 1 or 2 through the use of it, that is going to be enough to win that team fight. So there's ways that you can optimize that playstyle, but you have to think about using your Zenyatta Transcendence outside of countering it. And additionally to that, even when the opponent does have DPS ultimates, like there are going to be some situations where the opponent has a DPS ultimate that you are just perfectly suited to counter. But there's also at the higher ranks going to be other ways to counter it through just like team play or individual play, better ways to shut them down than having to invest in ultimate. And that's the you want to be using less to counter an ultimate and then using your ultimate offensively to try and win fights in ways that just that.
Experience
One for the touch here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get charged off. Yep.
That was very sad.
Very
Would that be even a good idea, even if I touched it? Do you think?
I think given the landscape and the ultimates, it could have worked for sure, given you were coming up on the blade play. But yeah, not getting the touch means we can't even execute that play. It seemed like we had the spawns to reinforce after the Transcendence. I think this could have worked if we got a touch in.
Yeah, it definitely could have worked. I think that it was worth the risk, probably, as long as you would
at the very least, we'd probably force their Transcendence.
Yeah, and you were coming up on Nanoblade as well as Hammer. There's big opportunities there. So yeah, I think the decision was good.
Okay.
Am I blind? No Harmony on the Reinhardt?
I think at this point I mentally gave up.
You mentally gave up.
Yeah. Oh, he's got a Harmony. He blew up.
At this point I switch.
So now we're on to Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
Not the worst time in the world to do it. You've got a Genji Blade.
I'll be watching over you.
And a High Noon.
I'm taking care of you. Damage boost engaged.
risky res.
Yep.
Realistically, there was no coming back from that fight. Either getting out and living, or trying to die on cart would be probably a better use of your time.
What's your
As well as keeping that res off cooldown.
What's your playtime relative to the? Oh, never mind. You're off Mercy.
At this point, we're just trying to stop Snowball.
Yep. I get stuck on Moira here.
Your strength fades. My will made real. Injuries are past. Ending.
Oh, she got in. Hey, you almost got Coalescence though.
Yeah, this was solid. Getting good value. Not too much to say about Moira play in general, but you're doing your job right.
Oof.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I like the use of damage orbs, recognizing that heal orbs weren't needed up to this point at all, and getting that extra coalescence. Like, you'd probably be like 70% max without those 3 orbs you threw out during these team fights.
Really good damage orb Coalescence cancel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I watched a lot of MO7.
I mean, overall, really good
There,
use of your resources.
Like, I probably
Good
would
awareness
have
on the
used a
damage.
healing orb instead of a damage orb there.
Just because we already had
Yeah.
advantage, yeah.
Yeah, so you had a man advantage. Now, damage orbs is going to like clean up sort of things, but so you're gonna want to go for these like higher risk players or like higher aggression plays when you need to gain the advantage or clutch or something like that. But you know, once you already have that advantage over time, if you have 5 people worth of resources versus 4 people worth of resources, you're just going to outvalue them over time, and you have a much higher chance of winning. And you want to make sure, like, your job once you have the advantage is to make sure that that advantage never flips to the enemy team. So, like, leave the damaging and the cleanup to your tanks and your DPS, and just make sure that no one on the enemy team can clutch. And that's where you know, a damage orb would have helped kill the opponent like 0.2 seconds earlier, but the healing orb would have reduced the chance of any of your team dying by a rather significant amount.
Okay.
Yeah. Just don't give up any openings when it's already basically a one-team fight.
Arrogance like that
Yeah,
will, like 1 in 10 will lead to a lost team fight or a lost game, right? So
Yeah, in that specific situation, it wasn't like, it wouldn't have been the worst thing because of how close your spawn is anyway, but getting in the habit of maintaining stability when you have advantage is really, really good practice, especially as a support.
that's behind you. Yep.
I should have. I panicked and used fate immediately, and I shouldn't have.
Yep.
Ideally, 180 seeing where the McCree is and then being able to decide where you can get cover, but a bit of a panic state, understandable.
I mean,
That
ideally,
orb geometry will
he
look
doesn't
nuts.
get away with that without out scouted. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you don't... Or, sorry, did you have something you were going to say, Lou?
No, just reacting.
So, you primarily play flex support than main support, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, I think that like the commonality that I'm seeing between your Mercy gameplay and your Moira gameplay is like you're really used to these positions that are far back and safe for you, but you have to find positions that are far enough forward and safe enough for you to actually get some value onto your Reinhardt, especially in a Reinhardt that's aggressive as this. So even on Mercy, when you had the ability to kind of be a lot closer to the tanks, pop in and out of cover, like you have that 2 seconds where you can break LOS and you can still get heal. So, I mean, like theoretically, you can heal your Rein for 2 seconds, get into line of sight for literally a single frame, hop back behind cover for 2 seconds, and you can be like that peek sort of thing to keep the beam attached, as well as that 2 seconds applies even when you go out of range. So if a Reinhardt is going out of your range, you can still heal him for that 2 seconds. Moira's going to be a little bit harder because you can't do that peek. You can't heal him through walls, but you know, through like bounces of the orb and, you know, finding this kind of heal over time spray, you can definitely help that out. So I think that your positioning on flex support still needs some improvement, but it's even worse on main support, where you need to find these positions where you're farther pushed up so that you can help your main tanks or your main and your off tank go as aggressive as they want to go. So you're doing a lot of things in terms of like healing people up once they're trying to stabilize or once they've backed up and have actually kind of survived duels so that they can go back in. But in the same way that you were winning a lot of these duels because you were applying harmony to your teammate and discord to the enemy teammate and moving duels in your favor a lot more often, in Moira you're going to have to be doing the same thing. Obviously you can't do things as dramatically as harmony and discord in order to balance the scales in your direction, but you need to be contributing to duels that are going on or team fights that are going on. You can't just be like a backline super health pack that people can return to for very quick healing.
Okay.
So on main support, you need to be contributing more to the people who are actually actively fighting and dueling, instead of being safe for you but leaving your front line out to dry.
Okay.
So like right here, right? This is going to be a very so this situation where this Reinhardt, he's now outside of your range. Now you've got an Ana Moira, so it is a lot of healing. It's not going to be the worst thing in the world, but a better positioning would be like right here, sort of thing, because you can also just like scout behind you. But here, as he pushes up, and then if he pushes up even more, you can have this mini, and then you can use this wall, or you could use this doorway. But you're going to always be like little off angles. You don't want to be following directly behind your Reinhardt, so you don't just get randomly chipped if he drops his shield, but finding all these angles that are within healing range of your Reinhardt as he pushes more aggressive is going to be pretty important.
This is something that, as Moira as well, should be like the easiest support to make these kind of changes to your playstyle on, because you have the fade, you have the ability to get yourself out of trouble. So try to be as aggressive as possible, obviously without getting punished, without forcing your fade too early or anything like that, but to get the most value. And then you can slowly start applying these concepts to other supports, and eventually to even someone like Zenyatta, where we talked about getting positioning in the pre-fight, getting more value out of just the space you're taking.
Oh, that was too early!
Oh no!
Yeah, I mistimed this so much.
But yeah, to what I was saying.
Moving on.
Yeah, just your value as support will like always be there when it comes to healing. Like you just by existing, you are putting out numbers, and no better hero illustrates this better than Moira. But when you look at heroes like Mercy, like the Zenyatta, even like Ana, and as you start climbing ranks, you're going to need to find more than just numbers. You're going to need to find more than just big heal numbers, more than just uptime, more than just staying alive. You're going to need to be able to influence the game as much as possible. And right now, I'd say in general, you're just playing too passively, and it's showing even on someone like Moira who can be that aggressive. So moving that mindset is not an easy thing to do, but in general, on these sort of support heroes, you want to be as aggressive as you can get away with, to what Jayne was saying. And that's often going to look like prioritizing your positioning a lot more aggressively, but still maintaining awareness of your possible threats. And yeah, Moira and Zen are sort of like two opposite sides of the spectrum, where
Yes.
Zen's like a lot harder to get that kind of space, and Moira's a lot easier to.
Yeah.
So it's going to take some time to get used to that on all these different heroes, but Moira especially, you should be looking to abuse the fact that you are a very hard to punish hero.
Yeah, and if they do push you, you can just fade to that new direction. Whereas on Zen,
Yeah, exactly.
you're going to have to predict the threats a lot more often, and be moving into your safer position as the opportunity for them to punish you.
Yeah, you need to sort of see the future.
All right, let's see what we got.
Well, it seems like one of them hasn't chosen a hero, so that's good for us.
Oh yeah, I didn't even
This
notice
is
that.
the key to success that we don't usually talk about. We usually save this sort of advice for high elo players. Just make sure the opponent doesn't pick a hero. Secret technique.
So that Discord on the enemy Zen,
Yeah.
it's both good and bad. It's good because, yes, he's a priority target. We want to eliminate Zen. We talked about how important you are to stay up in a team fight, so the same applies to the enemy team. But it's bad because no one could realistically focus that target. The most you really did was make him back up like a step so you couldn't shoot him. In that situation, and this is sort of the opposite of what we talked about last VOD about reacting to enemy pressure, we need to react to where our team can exert pressure. And at that moment in time, it was looking like the D.Va on point, where your Ryan and Zarya were focusing, could have been a better Discord target. Just making sure we burn that target as quickly as possible. Still maintaining awareness about that Zen, of course, and making him be afraid of you by throwing some shots at him is good. But Discord specifically, ideally, is around the team's focus as well as your own.
What do you think about your positioning right now?
Well, I was just on the payload because I was being the one person on card. So, but honestly, I don't know where. Like, I should be behind like one of these pillars, I suppose.
Like here or here?
Yeah, like the left side specifically, I think.
Okay. So two things here. Zenyatta shouldn't be pushing card. He's in almost no situation should he be pushing card, unless it's like you're doing post-fight cleanup or you're staggering or something, and the rest of your team needs to go up or something like that. But Zenyatta, especially on escort maps, this is hybrid, so. But especially on escort maps, it's usually going to be the job of the off tank, especially or a character that has really high mobility. In order to push the payload, right? But it is much, much more important for you to get into a position where you are fortified and effective in order to kind of contribute to the next team fight. It's going to look at the payload, where's the fight going to be, where do I position to be effective during that fight? Because, it's like, where is the first place a Doomfist is going to look for a Zenyatta? Right behind the cart. And in this case, he's going to find him, sort of thing. So, if you're pushing the cart because you're the one who has to do it, no, the correct answer is speak up on comms. Someone push the cart. I'm not going to. I'm taking position or something like that. That's a communication thing. So don't.
I specifically, like the Ryan was with me, and I specifically said, Ryan, go ahead and push up because we were the only two near there, and it's more important for him to be at the front line.
That's very true. You definitely don't want the Ryan there, especially if you're taking space. But a higher mobility hero or the off tank is usually going to be the best choice here. Because if I was you on the Zenyatta, I mean, again, using door frames, this one would be okay. You've got the Mega Pack, or depending on the level of aggression, being here would also work. Because this is going to be pretty easy for you to actually be effective. You've got a Mega, regardless of which door frame that you actually hang out with, and you're a lot more hidden. So that'd be kind of the main thing there.
Yeah, it is a little awkward because your entire team is sort of sitting on the cart, which is less than ideal. But yeah, the biggest concept I would say is making sure you're detached from where the team fight is expected to happen.
That was good place. Good place.
Yeah, good mid-fight rotation for sure, but definitely could have been a lot safer earlier than that. I'm curious why you felt transcendence was needed at that moment.
I saw Hanzo was ulting like in the middle of like the road, and soldier popped his ult, and I didn't want Hanzo to die.
Okay. I didn't see how close Hanzo was to actually dying, but I didn't actually hear the soldier out, if I'm being honest.
I didn't either. He was like behind me, but I was assuming that he was going to die.
Right, there's the soldier. Okay. And the soldier is where right now? I don't even see him. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's not really a threat. For this kind of position. If he was like behind you guys flanking on the tank and ready to wipe 3 members, this would be a fine reaction. But right now we're sort of reacting to the idea of a threat rather than the actual threat presenting itself. The fact that they trance to stabilize the grav could have meant you could react to that and then trance aggressively to sort of keep up the aggression, knowing we won't kill through grav. But reacting solely to the tac visor without seeing how much value it's getting pressing Q on Transcendence is immediate value. It's immediately starting the healing, and you can give yourself that half a second to react to where the threats are actually coming through. You can react to something like a pulse bomb being thrown down. You can react to tactical visor before he starts shooting. You can react to earth shatter if you dodge it to get in there right away. So making sure you're not overreacting by going too early means you're going to get more value out of this Transcendence, and it's going to mean their ultimates are a lot harder to get value out of because they can't just pop them whenever they want. They need to respect the fact that you've got Transcendence.
Okay, makes sense.
Ooh.
And then he feeds into it anyway.
Yeah, he left the big heal circle and he just went off on the flank. I don't know.
Big shiny heal circle just for you. No, Hansel,
Yeah.
no. Oh, Azari lives. So, do you remember this team fight? Was this recent enough that you remember what you were thinking during this team fight?
I was not expecting the Earth Shatter. And so I was hoping that the fight would be long enough that I could rotate to the Mega, then and then I saw the Earth Shatter and I got caught in between like, oh god, what do I want to do?
Oh yeah. So this definitely felt like chaotic. Like you didn't know. You kept looking for ways to get value, but weren't really finding any options there. So, you are really exposed, especially with the opponent playing the soldier and the Zen as well. Like you're really exposed on the sightline, especially with the Reinhardt. He's going to be wanting to take cover because there's no real space in this area for the Reinhardt to take cover. So if you are able to play in this, because if you don't take this space, the opponent's going to take this space and they're going to use it to pressure your backline. So fighting for this kind of like flank control is very important. But the odd thing here to me actually is that nobody was controlling this second flank, interestingly enough. Now this is going to require you to actually scout the Doomfist to make sure that he's not up there and you don't run into him or anything like that. But the amusing thing here is that both people were fighting pretty heavily over main and left flank. But this would have been an opportunity for at least to look for a charged right click and get like their Zenyatta or their Moira or their soldier. There's a lot of squishies that have a really good vantage point up on this bridge. Like look at this juicy sightline on a Zen that's not even looking right at you, right? So this sort of thing where it's like, especially if you're not getting any value from this main sightline and you are like under threat or being pressured under this main sightline, it's like there's nothing that you can really do here. I mean, the one thing that you could do is Harmony your Reinhardt and Discord the enemy Reinhardt to try and win that duel. But if they have more value in that duel, even with your orb exchange, and you can't fight for one flank, look for something on the other flank. And you don't have to exist here, right? You can just go here, find something, and then immediately leave, because it is very exposed. But kind of being a lot more fluid with this position, and even exploring or scouting other opportunities, because you were stuck in this position looking for something to do here. But you can look for things to do in other locations as well. And should.
Okay.
This is a very common situation at lower elos as well. This is what we call sort of a neutral fight, where both teams are sort of bashing their heads against each other. And a lot of the times in these neutral fights, if no one makes a play, it's going to come down to which front line outplays the other.
Yeah.
So your Reinhardt tried to make a play, and he got melted because of it, and then your front line died, so we just lose the team fight. Because we weren't able to control flanks, either as yourself or as some of our DPS members, because we weren't able to coordinate an aggressive play with ultimates, we kind of just stalled out, and we didn't have any options moving forward. We're kind of just bashing shields against each other, bashing front lines against each other, hoping that we win that fight, when in reality, and this kind of ties back into your more passive playstyle, we can be looking for ways to turn the scales in our favor. And that flank, like Jayne's talking about, is a perfect example of that.
And this is pretty common, like especially in Platinum, less so in Diamond where you're at. But this is going to be one of the reasons why in the lower elos, double main healer, double projectile is very strong, because it's the most damage and the most healing, but it has very low utility, very poor ability to control flanks, and at the higher elos, that's the shit that matters. So
yeah, it's the same reason Bastion, Junkrat work in low elos, because teams don't see the creativity they can take in order to beat that composition, so they try to run at it, and that never goes well.
Ooh, those headshots.
Payload stopped.
I like the spam. It's always really fun to be on Zenyatta and just be firing down sight lines that are like a pixel wide and just annoying the hell out of people. I love that.
Yeah. There's a point on Hollywood with the car on first point that I absolutely love to spam.
I remember the first time I saw somebody shooting under the payload. I forget which map it was, but I saw a pro doing it in like season like 1 or 2, and my brain just exploded. It was just like, to me, I was like, this thing is impenetrable. It has no, it's solid bottom. But, you know, trying to shoot under cars and payloads and things like that, and through gaps in fences, like on Anubis and things like that. A whole different world.
Yeah. Really good awareness on this Doomfist, by the way.
Yeah, I really like it. Right. So one of the things is that with you knowing that this Doomfist is on this far right side, like with this scouted, this one's again free, right?
Super free.
You just be like, just fuck off, just leave him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this idea of like pivoting around your threats is really good. And it seems like you have a pretty natural understanding of this, where you want to keep your front line in between you and your greatest threat. So when he's on one side of the map, that doesn't mean you stay in your same neutral position. You rotate around your front line, kind of like hands on a clock. You just move around him to keep him on the opposite side. That was really, really good. Unfortunately, they had a graph, so.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunate.
But yeah, really good game sense and understanding there.
How long can you wait here? Ooh.
Ooh.
Too late.
I actually like this trance. It doesn't find value. Oh, okay. Find a little bit of value. But we were forcing a play there.
Yeah.
And the only way we were going to win that team fight is if we kill in that graph, which we got 2 high noon kills. But realistically, the amount of ults we just committed, we needed to make this work right now, or else we're just wasting a lot of time. And ideally, yes, you trance right now and save the Rhine.
Yeah.
But even the fact that after Rhine died, you were willing to commit Transcendence, I think was good.
Yeah, because we
Make this
used nano.
graph like try to work. Yeah.
So the trans timing wasn't ideal. I think that you wanted to save Reinhardt, and it was just a little bit late on it. But then the second thing that would have happened is that right here, the ideal is to get right in front of the McCree, because your transcendence
Body block a little bit.
Yeah, body block. Because your trance does not make people invincible; it just gives them 300 healing per second, right? But 300 healing per second does not matter if he just eats a right click from the enemy Zenyatta or something like that. And it's pretty easy to burst people through Zenyatta trance if you're actually focusing. So I would have loved to see a because like right he's in your trance, but he's half, and then just gets obliterated, right? So he trades one, but yeah, I would have at least attempted to go for that body block. And you can body block trance is going to be only half the game when you're actually in trance. The other half is going to be blocking things, really important cooldowns. You know, like one of the biggest things that you're going to be wanting to block is going to be anti-nades, right? So if you know they have an Ana and they're trying to anti somebody, you can be close enough or like between that Ana and the rest of your team so that you catch the nade on yourself and it doesn't purple anybody who's in the trance. Another one is going to be to very commonly to body block charges. Like if somebody gets hammered and you've tranced that, you need to get in front of the Rhine so that he pins you instead of a teammate, because that again will burst through your trance. So like trance, the healing is only half the game. Body blocking, cooldowns, damage, and other major threats or even healing is going to be really important. You know, it's like if the Ana is trying to heal somebody, get in front of the Ana. If the BAP is trying to heal somebody, get in front of the BAP. Make sure that their healing can't go on to their teammates. So you can do a lot more than just heal people in Transcendence. Pretty sure you're dead.
Oh.
Yeah.
What is this Zarya doing?
I was really expecting Doomfist to go.
I was expecting the Doomfist to go for you as well.
That's why I was just inting to reset faster.
Chat, the Dallas Fuel practice is like 20 feet outside my door. That's who's yelling.
The good news is, we've drained most of their ultimates.
Science will reveal the truth.
At this point, I feel like I'm just doing nothing on Zen, so I just...
Yeah,
I don't even know why I go Moira here.
Alright, this is... Go ahead.
I think it goes back to that mindset of like, we're trying to force the frontline fight instead of looking for options. Like, look at what your McCree and your Tracer are doing right now. I think that's what's going to win us this team fight. Not more healing in the front line, not moving forward and just bowling over their Reinhardt, because they have the defensive positioning advantage. If we put all of our focus into their Ryan, and they've got this Zenyatta behind disconnected, this Doomfist looking for flanks, this Soldier behind disconnected that we can't pressure out, we're just going to end up stalling against the Rhine, and then they're going to close the fight out on us. We need plays like what this McCree is doing, what this Tracer is doing in the enemy backline, to open up the fight and take the fight away and around from that front line. Because if we always force the neutral fight, unless we've got like big ults and they can't counter them, it's going to be very, very, very hard to break through that.
So as Zen, I should be with my McCree, even if
In a situation like this, I would say yes.
Even if it leaves my Ana alone without her support.
As Zenyatta, you can't really do much for Ana anyway, to be honest. If you were playing something like Brig, I would say you'd want to stay closer to your Ana. Something like Lucio, you'd want to keep aware of your Ana. But as Zenyatta specifically, you should be the one that people are looking out for, like we mentioned on first point defense.
And this isn't going to be a binary either, right? There's going to be some situations like a Tracer, for example. If you can have that Tracer Harmony Orbed, from the backline where you are with your Ana. So it's like, if you can have your cake and eat it too, where you can support somebody on the flank as well as just shelling out the damage and the discords on the main sight line, great. Does it make sense to go off with like a Tracer or a Genji? No. Going with your McCree works really well, since you can, move his breakpoint down a little bit lower. Maybe one of your shots reduces one of the shots that he needs to land to score an elimination. But yeah, so, and again, this is not like a binary thing where it's like in every single situation you should be with your McCree. This is going to be a very situational, context-dependent piece of advice, but we're harping on it a lot because it doesn't seem like it's in your playbook right now, and it needs to be there, not all the time, just occasionally,
As an option, yeah.
As an option.
It's one of your tools.
It's one of your tools, yes.
Regenerate your cellular structure.
So, and like just the one caveat to what Lou said is that what you're doing here isn't going to win the fight. What the McCree and the Tracer are doing on the flanks is going to win the fight. Now, what you are doing can indirectly win the fight if you have it stalled out long enough that your Tracer and your McCree get value. But nothing that you do here on this front line is going to directly win the fight outside of a massive outplay from like a Grav or a Hammer or something like that.
Yeah, what you're doing is taking attention from the enemy team so that Tracer and McCree have the space to win the fight.
Yeah, so it's like you're contributing in that way, but there's nothing that there's no like win condition that you individually have here directly. So, and if you do want to be like carrying and being very effective in ranked games, you need to have an individual where it's like, this is what I do to win this team fight. So, and you don't have that anymore.
Yeah, sometimes you can't always rely on your team to find their own win conditions. You gotta make them yourself.
And that rule is true for Mercy as well. Like even characters that have even less direct impact. If you're going to be climbing into Grandmaster or top 500 on Mercy, you still need to play in a way where you have individual impact on a way that wins team fights and wins games. Because you are going to get into lobbies where you are 4.1, 4.2, and the rest of your team is 3.8, 3.9, and you need to carry them against, the Grandmaster, the top 500 that they got was a Tracer top 500, right? So
it's funny, my Mercy is much more aggressive than my Moira or Zen.
Interesting.
Mercy as well. That is really embarrassing.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
Tragic.
Like, I wanted to help my tanks, but I also know I needed to go to the Mega.
Yep.
Rock in a hard place.
Yep.
I'm not dead yet.
In that situation, I guess, to be really nitpicky, I would have said your tanks didn't need you at that very moment.
Yep.
So just play for yourself. But
and you,
hard to predict.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you want to like be an exhaustive explanation, You can heal a little bit, constantly under threat, and then potentially die, or you can just like communicate to your team, hey, I need heals. You go grab it, then come back, and then just be a more like it's better to kind of be ineffective for a couple seconds and then be at full effectiveness than just constantly being under threat or constantly be playing suboptimally because you want to be getting some value earlier. Best to just reset, be full everything, resources, cooldowns, blah, positioning, than trying to continue in a suboptimal position and situation.
You can even just look at it like a numbers game. Like, would you rather be 100% effective 50% of the time, or like 50% effective 75% of the time?
And that's math.
Yeah, those are numbers. Ooh.
Get into position.
I'm surprised you got away with that without fade.
You didn't hear
And then we faded his face. This is the aggressive playmaking we're looking for.
I love it.
That was perfect. I love it. Yeah.
I mean, we did completely ignore the Doomfist that landed right next to us on Arana, and who is now sleeping, right?
But you know. Realistically,
Wonder how
again,
that happened.
I don't even think Moira healing goes through Doomfist Burst. So it's hard to say what you should have done in that situation. Maybe you could have saved Ana, but you did net the kill in the Zen. And it's not like Ana being down cuts off all your team's healing because you're still alive in the fight. So I would say the kill in the Zen would have been more valuable.
Don't listen to Lou. Heal your Ana. She landed the sleep!
And she still died.
Because okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's how fast Doomfist Burst is. I don't even think Moira healing there would have made the difference.
I don't know if there's any healer that can heal through this curse except for like Baptiste.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Oh,
you
please
could try
be
and
cold,
stun the
please be
Doomfist's
cold.
brig.
No!
Just whip him away as Lucio.
Wonderful.
Nice try, nice
You
try.
see it.
So yeah, it is a little bit awkward playing two flex supports in general. Typically, you want one of the supports to have more priority in terms of who's getting more resources to get their own space, stay alive the longest and stuff like that. But playing two flex supports, i.e. on a Zen, Moira on a, technically even Mercy kind of, but there's sort of, both of you want to be doing the most you can, and neither of you want to be really playing for the other necessarily. So it gets a little bit awkward. I would say the priority, I guess if I had to make a tier list, and I hate tier lists, the priority for those kind of positioning and for like the power player to be would be like Zenyatta, Baptiste, Ana, and then B tier would be like the Moira, the Mercy, and others like that. So if you're not on one of those priority heroes, maybe playing safer for your Ana, like we're saying for that Doomfist, could have been better. But if you're on someone like Zenyatta, you should be the one asking for those resources.
Okay.
So we've got a little bit of time here, but did you have any kind of questions or follow-up or anything that you wanted to go over again?
I guess how much should I prioritize having a defensive ultimate when because I recognize that having Ana Zen isn't really the best support duo. And unfortunately Lucio is my worst hero, so I never play Lucio. And the only other defensive ultimate really is Zen Trans and Baptiste. So I'm always kind of struggling. Like, should I stick with Zen just to like have the defensive ult just to help secure team fights, but like be less effective sometimes during the neutral, or do I switch to Mercy or Moira?
So the question being, how important are defensive support ultimates to winning games, or how much should you value them?
Yeah, if the enemy team has like some like an ability that you need to kind of like grab Dragon or Nano Blade.
So because we're sitting in low diamond right now, I don't think that you're going to be seeing with not enough high frequency, are you going to see a situation where a defensive support ultimate is absolutely required to win? In 2CP, I think that it's probably going to have a higher impact, but there's going to be a lot of situations where I think that the primary concern at your elo should be the impact that you can have during team fights where you don't have your ultimate. When you do have your ultimate, especially if you're doing ult tracking or are using it properly, that's kind of like that free team win sort of thing. But moving into Diamond, you're like just the usage of the ultimate and making sure that that's getting value is going to be something that is an important, like more important in plat to get out of plat. But you're out of plat now, and I think that just from what we've looked at, the most important thing for you is going to be trying to find value in that neutral, trying to actually improve your positioning. And the thing that that's going to do for you in the short term is just get you your ultimate more often, because you'll be more impactful. And I think that from the way that you asked your question as well, I think that it's important to reiterate that using your transcendence in an aggressive way, in a tempo play, as a way for to get a positive trade on the tanks, like doing it where both Rhines go in, Zarya bubbles get traded, you land a Discord on the enemy Reinhardt, and then instead of stabilizing, you trance to maintain tempo and get an elimination on the Reinhardt. Plays like that, especially with just the bonus healing and tempo that you get off of that ultimate, can win team fights. In the same way that outside of like 2CP defense, where you do really, really need to make sure that you can counter a full team wipe combination or something like that, be more effective in the neutral so that you can get your ultimate faster, and then use that ultimate in more ways than just countering enemy DPS ultimates is going to be what's getting you the most value in the shortest term to help you climb up towards Masters.
Okay.
I have maybe a controversial take.
Oh no. Oh no.
He's gonna say it.
So he's gonna say it. I view ultimates in ranked specifically. This doesn't apply to team play. Their importance, defensive or not, like any hero in the game's ultimate. I think their importance has sort of like a reverse bell curve as you go through the ranks. So if you look at like the lowest ranks, ultimates are huge because they just win. It's very hard for people to counter ultimates. It's very rare that people will be predicting ultimates. It's very easy to land big ultimates and just win a team fight off that. Even just single ultimates, even like quote unquote bad ultimates like High Noon can be huge value in lower ranks. As you're getting to more where you're sitting now into the Plat Diamond leading into Masters range, it sort of loses that playmaking potential because people are learning to play around it. People are learning to expect them and stuff like that. And it's much, 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 much more important to be consistently finding value outside of your ultimate. And I would say at the rank you're at right now, you should never be picking a hero just for its ultimate. You should be picking a hero because of the value you can find throughout the entire game, not only when you can press Q. And then once you reach like GM top 500 level, ultimates become really important again because ultimate economy becomes really important.
And we're back to RTS Overwatch.
Yeah, exactly. And then it becomes almost similar to team play, where people are ready to counter and people are thinking 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of the next team fight. Granted, not every game, even top 500 games get a little messy, but at the rank you are right now, and I think for the fastest growth potential, you shouldn't be focusing on your ultimate plays. I think you have a generally good enough understanding of Transcendence, especially probably the most important support ultimate in the game, that you should be focusing instead on everything you can do outside of your ultimate.
So being more aggressive, enabling DPS more?
I think that position is probably positioning is definitely the number one for me, because that was a pretty common one on both your main support plays and your flex support plays. Like for your flex support plays, I think that positioning is going to be introducing the flank control, or at least kind of like those flank positionings and more fortified locations into your potential pool of positions that you can take. And I mean, there's a let me think about this one, because there was actually quite a few things. So because on the positioning, like, keeping track of escape routes, there were quite a few positions where you were in a position which was relatively safe and relatively effective, but didn't have any escape route. There was positioning based off of the threat that the opposing DPS players were actually threatening you. It's like where the positioning again was based off of kind of what was good for you to get some value, but still put yourself at a much higher threat. When you were playing main support, you weren't playing up aggressive enough in order to make sure that your tanks were actually getting healing and support during fights and during duels, while still keeping yourself safe and keeping yourself able to retreat if necessary, as opposed to something like Zenyatta or Baptiste, where you want a heal angle and a healing sightline and a damaging sightline. When you're playing that main support, either Moira or Mercy, you want to be just doing enough where you are maintaining that healing, and it's a much different positioning than it is on Zenyatta or Baptiste. And then I think I had one more, but I can't remember it off of the top of my head. So positioning, I think, is by far your number one. And positioning is a hard one, again, because when we were talking about the potential to go off with your McCree on that flank, or even solo once you recognized that the Doomfist was threatening you, and you like rotating to make sure that your largest threat is on the other side of your main tank and your main or your front line. All of those things are important, but when you look at a map, for example, there's going to be some positions that are good for you to hold in like 80% of the time, but then 20% of the time the opponent's playing a different composition, or there's a different play style, or something makes that position less useful, and kind of recognizing what factors change which positions are effective is going to be something that's going to be a little bit harder to learn. But yeah, I think that if I was to summarize the most important thing for you to focus on in terms of like positioning is being aware of the multiple different options that you have for positioning, and then reevaluating which one is best depending on what's going on in the team fight, or depending on the compositions at any time. But there is not just one right answer. There are multiple right answers to positioning, each with their pros and cons, and they change and shift through a team fight.
Okay, makes sense.
It's a lot of info.
It's a lot.
And
Yeah.
it takes a long time to get comfortable in all these different situations.
Mhm.
As long as you keep asking yourself questions like, where should I be during this fight? Where should I be setting up? Where are my threats coming from? You'll be able to make these more informed decisions in game and be able to put yourself in the better position more often. And that's really all we can aim for.
I think number one, I just need to play the game more.
Yeah,
I
That helps too.
I usually just play like 3 games at most, but this week I've been playing a lot. Like I played 10 games like in the past couple of days. So negative win rate, but I'm hoping with this device I can try to improve it.
Improvements forever. SR is temporary.
True, very true.
All right. Well, we'll make sure that you have access to this VOD, and if you do, again, we have a pretty pretty habitual tendency to just to overload people with information. So if you do have any follow-ups, feel free to reach out to us if we can clarify anything that we went over during today's VOD review.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for this opportunity.
All right. Thank
you
you
for the
Erie.
VOD.
You enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I hope it helps you hit Masters.
All right. Thank you.
Good luck.
Have a good day.